Whoa, 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 whoa.
Welcome to today's episode of Camden ADHD. If you have not done so already, hit that subscribe button so that you never have to miss another episode of this podcast. All right, so in this podcast, I dive deep in with my new friend, Miss Katelyn Mabry. She is the author of Hi, It's Me, I Have ADHD. Katelyn is a reading tutor for K through 12. She majored in early childhood education. She herself was actually diagnosed with ADHD at age of 10 years old and had amazing parents that did their very best to advocate for her. Now her joy and her call is to help support and to love on incredible individuals, especially the little ones that also have this diagnosis. She remembers the overwhelm that she felt when she heard attention deficit disorder, and she wants other people that have the same diagnosis to know that they are not alone, that there's a community here, and that they are perfect exactly the way they are. Katelyn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your kind words. You're so sweet.
Oh, well, they're real. No, they're totally real. So you are in, I'm going to look down at my notes. You're in Berlin.
Yep. New Berlin, Wisconsin.
Yep. That's awesome. And
Yep.
A little bit of your background, you're a special education working in resource and specifically with reading. Is that correct, for early childhood?
Correct. Well, I can tutor, or I can teach reading all the way through high school. So I'm early childhood special education through third grade in terms of being in a classroom, but then I can be resource all the way through high school.
Awesome. I think your husband just walked in.
He did.
Hi, husband. You're a big part of this too. Awesome. Well, we're just so happy and lucky to have you today. Let's just go ahead and dive right into it. This is an incredible book. Tell me about how it came about, and if you have ADHD, how did this whole thing come to be part of your life?
So it's a pretty fun story to tell because I was diagnosed with ADHD officially when I was 10 years old. And a few interesting things about that is I asked my parents, I was like, well, how did you know to take me to the doctor? And they said, well, in the morning, we would sit on the couch and we would watch you run from your bedroom to the bathroom, from the bathroom to the kitchen. You're just this little ball of energy. And all the reports that came home were like, well, she's a really nice little girl, but she won't stop talking. And I just really struggled in school in terms of just maintaining focus. And there's some other red flags, staying organized and getting stuff done. And, all those little red flags. And so they got me diagnosed at 10. And I was actually diagnosed with ADHD and mild depression at the time.
Wow.
And
so depression and ADHD can look like a little kid running around everywhere, even.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the interesting thing is my parents at first were like, no, she's such a happy little girl. She can't be depressed, which is so interesting to me now as an adult because I feel that mild depression at times where I just feel so sad and I can't figure out why. And I mean, I think coupled with ADHD, because we have such intense emotions, we have the same emotions as other people, but they are a lot more intense. Right. And so, so that coupling with the depression is when I feel sad, I feel really sad. And it's hard to even wrap a why around it or a reason behind it. It's just this deep sadness. And so that was interesting, kind of learning to navigate that and what that looked like. But in terms of my ADHD, I just remember feeling alone though in my diagnosis. I was like, man, what is wrong with me? Because I remember them telling me you have this thing called ADHD, and it was attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And I was like, the deficit and disorder just rung in my ears at the time. And I was like, oh, there's stuff wrong with me. I'm defective. Like that was kind of this stigma that I put on myself, and I didn't understand it. And they didn't really talk to me more about it. I mean, they implemented great strategies. I mean, my parents did the best they could. Yeah. They did a great job.
It wasn't as common.
It was an internal
in the schools,
struggle,
right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So when you were in schools, there's been a shift. There has
been.
But
Mm-hmm.
I like what you said is that your parents did the best that they could. And I think that's every parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
that
Absolutely.
so many of us, and I know in my story, that's what it is too. So many of us are looking for ways, but we have to like pick these little pieces of knowledge from all these thousands of resources. And sometimes we're just trying to do the best we can. And that's why I love your story in your book, is because you actually did something about it to help more people like your parents or like yourself.
Right. Absolutely. So then let's fast forward. I went to college, and to get into college was actually a challenge because I didn't do very well in school. And I tried so hard, but I just struggled. It was the struggling, and I struggled in that environment.
Yeah.
I wasn't a very good test taker. It was just a challenge. And so I actually wrote a letter to the college. I was recruited for track. And so I wrote a letter to that college saying, I know my SATs aren't where they should be to get in, but I have ADHD. I have a really hard time test taking. Will you allow me to come in to your school? You know, and they let me in.
Wow.
They gave me grace and let me in. And craziest part was once I got into my major, I struggled through some of the, prereqs, but once I got into my major, it was the highest GPA I've ever had, because I was able to
Yep.
hyper focus on the passion and my purpose and my gifts,
Totally.
like all of that surface. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I was meant to do,
Yeah,
And
you
so
found the
that
calling.
really, yes. And that really is a testament to being aware with our little ones. Like, each of them have a calling and have a purpose and have gifts and talents and so many strengths beneath that diagnosis. And so it's so important that we cultivate those rather than honing in on the struggles. We need to cultivate the strengths, And
So what is that? I'd love to ask you, what does that look like day to day in your like ideal home? Obviously you have that in your own home, and we all
mhm.
have our goals. So in like your ideal situation, what might that look like day to day for a mom or a dad?
Well, I think a big thing is giving grace in the moments of struggle, and helping your child be aware of their struggles and not let it define them,
Mm,
but help them learn how to navigate through them, if that
awesome.
makes sense. So
Yeah.
I think it's so important to have, a lot of times I hear from parents that it's like they want to hide it from their kids. Like, they don't want their kids to have to deal with it, but really that's doing the child a disservice,
Yeah.
because then they're not understanding why they're, thinking or feeling or acting these certain ways. But I feel like if they had an awareness and an understanding, then they would be able to respond a little differently, and
Yeah.
they would be able to say, okay, well, my memory is not the greatest, but I'm really creative artist that can do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, and so putting a name to what the struggle is, but saying, okay, well, I can work on that, but I also have these other strengths that I can really build on,
Totally.
So like my daughter, she has ADHD, and the poor thing from me got her executive function working memory is just not there. I mean, it's delayed clearly.
Yeah.
And so I really try, but I see her starting to beat herself up over it. And it just breaks my heart, because I remember doing that as a kid, and I
Yeah,
still do yeah. And
absolutely.
so I really try to help her give herself grace and give herself, you know, forgiveness for, like, say, yes, this is a struggle that I have, but no, I'm not going to let it define who I am,
I
like,
love
cause she'll be like, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
because
so I think just,
we all have our things, don't we? Like we all have struggles in one way or another. Some of them are very clear and obvious. For
mm-hmm,
me, I had, mine was ADHD inattentive, so it
mm-hmm,
was not as clear, but just as frustrating. And
mm-hmm,
if it's not ADHD, it's going to be something else. And so we all have things that we have to work through. But like, I love what you said, knowing and identifying is really going to help us know how to overcome. Is going to give us tools in our toolbox to recognize, so that we can believe in ourselves and we can put into processes some really good helps that we
right.
have. It's awesome.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I think, like you said, there's just so much to be said about the iceberg effect. So,
Mm,
like you said, I mean, there's only so much on the surface of ADHD, not very much, and that's kind of where the stigma lies. Like, oh, well, it's this, and this, and that's kind of like where it sticks. But there's so much beneath the surface. There's so much beneath the waters of
yes.
ADHD that isn't seen, and and not until I was able to bring those things to the surface was I able to grow in my, like,
Yeah.
and
Get past
almost,
it.
and I
Or
love
embrace
this.
it, or, whatever word you
Yeah.
want to use.
Well, and I loved, somebody said to me once, they're like, the best thing I ever did in my relationship with my spouse with ADHD was become friends with ADHD. And I
Oh,
love that. Like,
yeah.
treat it as a separate and get to know it and get to understand it. Like when you're in a new
Yes.
relationship, you learn about that person, and so I loved that, like treating ADHD as its own entity,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and separating it from the person,
Mhm.
I just love that. So,
Yeah.
so in college, I was in a class and my professor had ADHD.
Mm.
It's just the craziest things happen. But she had given us a project to do an activity for a child with any sort of disability. Well, I chose my own because it made sense to me.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm going to just write a book. So
Relatable.
I wrote the book. My brother drew the pictures. And like the night before, like 2 days before it was due.
Oh my goodness.
And I presented it, and I'll never forget it. She comes, and this shows the power of encouragement and believing in someone. She comes running down the aisle. She's like, "You need to publish that book." And I was like, "What?"
This is school project.
I was like, this is my school project. And so it meant the world that she was so excited about it. And I got 100%, and it was like great and wonderful. But I sat on it for 10 years.
Wow.
Which goes back to all those false beliefs in my head that I wasn't good enough. I was fearing failure. I was feeling like nobody would want to read it. Like there's so many things that were flooding my brain.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so, but finally I was like, so many years later, I'd gotten married, had a baby, and I was like, you know what? I am sick of starting something and not finishing it. And I just had this aha moment, and I really felt led. I prayed about it, and I was like, okay, I really feel led to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked my husband, and he was like, Katelyn, if that is what you're feeling called to do, you need to do it. And you need to know that even if you touch one life with that book, it's going to be worth publishing it.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's it. And so that's the
you
story
already
in a
have,
nutshell.
and so many more. And, just wait till the release, people. It is out right now for a digital download, not right?
Correct. It's free digital download on my website, www.katelynmabry.com.
Awesome. So just put www here and .com over here.
Yep.
It's so beautiful too. Your brother did an incredible job with all of the illustrations. And they're just so fitting. I love the colors and the movement in each one of them, and it fits your incredible prose in there, all the amazing words. And I would love to hear a little bit about how you chose the situations that you chose to put in the book.
I did do a little research late into the night, and because I know everybody with ADHD there's differences, right? I mean, there's differences in all of us.
Yeah.
And so what I tried to do is I try to do the common ones, the ones that pretty much everybody can relate to in a sense,
Yep, totally.
And I tried to do the combine, right? So the inattentive and the hyper, so I tried to really make it across the spectrum of ADHD rather than just, and so, I just wanted it to be super relatable, super connecting. I wanted kids to read it and say, that's me, And so
be able to identify on, every page, and maybe not of them, they can identify someone else, like kind of what your daughter just did the other day.
Yeah.
Right? Saying, exactly. Hey, I think my friend has ADHD.
Yeah, I think my friend. Exactly. But and just to be able to see other characters that were children, even though they're characters, they're still faces of other children, and know that they're not alone,
Yeah.
And say, oh, that she has it. Like, even though it's a character, it's still a face,
Well,
like
and
it's
a whole
still
book written about it as well. Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to, I'm sure that's why you're doing that too, is what you said about kind of feeling like all these big words and that's me. And does anyone else have this? When you were diagnosed at
Right.
10,
Yeah.
allowing other kids to not feel so alone. That's what a
Right.
gift.
Well, and helping other people understand it a little better too. I
Yeah.
feel like it's so misunderstood and there's such a negative stigma around it. I mean, I think it's definitely getting better and I think there's definitely a shift being made, but I also feel like I have so many parents that will say to me, "Oh, my child has ADHD." Like it's such a negative thing,
Burn it.
And yes, it's challenging,
Mhm.
and yes, there are struggles, but it doesn't have to be 100% negative.
Yeah.
It's all about mindset, and it's all about how you. I mean, like I just celebrate my daughter's gifts. I mean, yes, she struggles in so many different of those executive function ways, but she also is the most empathetic, compassionate, like loving, creative, brilliant little girl
Yeah.
in her own way, and so I really think feeding into those attributes are huge with kids.
Love it. I absolutely love it. It's just so positive, and I love this shift. I was actually talking with my husband just like what you were saying, I think 2 nights ago, and I was talking to my sister-in-law about this. As you get into this ADHD world, especially as adults, a lot of the time it's poking fun at it, right? Which is funny because we can relate, like that relatability and that community is like, oh, such a sigh of relief. But at the same time, and that's why I just love what you're doing with this book. After, hours of researching and learning and joking and stuff, poking at fun, it really starts to weigh on you. Like, oh, I'm all these quote unquote negative or silly things when that's not what we are meant to be. We are meant to shine. And that whole message shines through this book. I mean, like I said, even in the vibrance of the colors, of the words, of talking about hard things, but in a good light, like maybe you do have a messy desk, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
You're still a person of worth, and I see
Yeah.
you, and you're important. So I just absolutely love it. So tell us a little about your release of it and what we can look forward to, and what the future of this book is.
Yes. So it is releasing on January 14th. It's going to be nationwide. So it'll be available. Right now it's on pre-order, but it'll be available to purchase on January 14th. And I'm hoping that it's going to really generate, like you said, a shift in a conversation and help this is me. Hi, I have ADHD.
No, you got a text, man. You're like, oh,
I'm like, and I'm distracted.
You're doing great. I love it. Speaking of being distracted, let's go ahead and put a little break in here. Isn't Katelyn amazing? Guys, mental health is no joke. And in order to take care of our mental health, it takes a lot of effort. Sometimes it's very confusing. We don't know where to start. We don't know where to end. We don't know which resources to look into. I want to share with you some of the basic ways that I use nutrition to help my mental health increase. This is clarity, gets rid of the brain fog. It makes me feel less depressed. It gives me more energy. I can make it all the way through the day. I'm not as frustrated as easily. If you can relate with any of these, join me on a 90-day mental health challenge. All applications need to be in by January 14th, 2020. Guys, that's right around the corner. Let's get going on this. The grand prize winner is going to get $10,000, and then there'll be 10 additional winners that will get $1,000. There's no fees to enter. You don't have to put any money in to get the money out. Guys, you got to take a look at this. If you're viewing this podcast on YouTube, check out my bio. It will bring you to my webpage. If you're already on my webpage, take a look around the site, or feel free to email me at camden.adhd@gmail.com. Now back to the podcast. Real.
And so I keep thinking about, I want to share a story. So
okay.
Can I insert a story?
Yeah, we can totally come back. Please.
I brought my launch. I'm doing a live launch in Milwaukee, in New Berlin.
Okay.
At a restaurant bar, and I brought my invite to my daughter's school, and there was a boy behind the desk of the secretary. So I give her the invite, and she's looking at it, and he looks over and he goes, "Did you write that book?" And I said, "I did write that book." He goes, his eyes light up.
Oh.
And he says, I have ADHD. And I said, you do? He goes, and that's my favorite book. And I was like, oh my
Oh
gosh.
man.
And my heart,
Brownie
I mean,
points.
literally my eyes just started
Ugh.
welling up with tears. And I said, oh buddy, I am so glad you love that book. He goes, I have it right next to my bed. I was like, oh my gosh. And so fast forward, so I talked to the secretary, she shared it. And I was walking out of the building and he was walking with, it looked like another teacher. And he turns around and he says, thank you so much for writing that book.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh. I mean, and that right there, that was like a clincher for me. I was like, there it is. There it is. There's the one, you know, and that's the thing is I want to celebrate every single child that it impacts and it helps, you know? And so,
that's amazing. And can I just say, like, right now with that story, what I'm remembering is that struggling girl in school.
mm-hmm.
And that struggling girl just hoping to get into college, and that girl finally finding her place at the end of college, and then having 10 years, you know, probably ADHD oriented and trying to find yourself, but you did it. And now look at the impact that that's making. So I think there's a story inside the story, knowing that, that you have ADHD. And for all of those of us out there that do have dreams and that do want to get this accomplished, that you're not only spreading the message, but the facts that you've done it is also, I would say even a greater message, that you're living what you preach. And that is cool. That is so awesome. I just applaud you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. You're going to make me cry.
It's real stuff, man. This is the real deal.
Well, and that's the thing is I think the biggest thing I want people to hear are the stories behind it, because I'm not here. I'm not anywhere to push my book on anyone. I just want my book to be a helpful resource.
I'll push
for people.
I'll push it on people.
But you know what I mean? Like, so for instance, I got my books in the mail. I had ordered some for my launch party, and I saw on Facebook a mom had posted in an ADHD support group site that her daughter was taking medication, and she's 9 years old, and she had all of a sudden talked about wanting to take her own life. And it just like, it ripped my mama heart out. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to send her my book. I need to send her the first copy of my book. Nobody has a physical copy yet, but she needs it, you know? And so, her mom is just desperately asking people to pray and asking people for advice. And she's, you know, I don't know what to say to her to make her feel like she's, you know, but she feels like there's something wrong with her because she only has one friend and she has ADHD and da, da, da. And so I sent her my book with a really long letter and just telling her how, like, having one friend is a treasure, and how I totally understand how she thinks and feels. And da, da, da. Well, so they sent me a video of her dad reading her the book and her response. And she was just like lit up. She was smiling and she was like, I feel that way. I think that way. And her mom messaged me crying. She was like, thank you so much. Now she doesn't feel alone. And I was just like,
oh my goodness.
And so I'm like, this is my why. Like, this is my why, you know?
It's amazing.
So yeah,
thank you for sharing that. That is an incredible story.
Thank you.
And it's just going to be one of a flood. There's so many, so many people that need this, Katelyn. Like I love that you said that you prayed, like you were inspired to do this. And now I know that a lot of the inspiration that I'm getting for what we want to accomplish as well with this community is based on your like perseverance and your faith and your inspiration, and then your doing. And that's the hard part.
It is the hardest part.
It's just so cool. Well, are there any other last things that you want to share with us? I mean, do we ever get back to
so if you're yeah, right. Well, so other people though that would really benefit from this book. So it's not only just for kids, but there's tips in the back of it. And there's also coloring pages that you can print. Oh, cool. And so it's very interactive. It's for educators. It's for social workers. Find it super helpful. Counselors, because it's just a really good engagement in terms of conversation and in terms of sharing. And peers. And siblings benefit from it huge, because then they can understand their peer or their sibling that much better,
Totally.
And so, so really it's for anybody. It's for anybody who wants to understand ADHD just a little bit more,
Awesome. Yeah. I would hope that every classroom would have this. I mean, there is not a single classroom that does not have at least one student that
it's true.
battles ADHD.
I think it's like 1 in 3 or something. I mean, it's
crazy. Yep.
It's high.
Very
but
big.
But yeah, so you could, if anybody would be interested to join the launch team, so we can launch it as far as we can. Everything is on my website. So that's kind of the landing page. So you can get the free PDF there. You can look into the launch. My live launch is on there in New Berlin if anybody's in the Wisconsin area, or they can have the date for and what would be awesome is as many people as we can to get on that launch day, just blast it to their audience. Is
it going to be a Facebook Live, or what is it? What format?
I think, yeah. So I'm not really, we're doing it a couple different ways. I think I'm going to talk to my publisher about it to see. I'm still learning all this stuff.
Yeah, we all are. No problem. We'll take a look at that page then to keep us updated as to what we can do to help with it. Because I mean, it's both of us as educators. I know that educators, we always have educator friends.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
getting the word out like that, very simple, and it, especially on such a prevalent subject. This is real time. Like, everyone knows somebody that needs help in this arena. And the positivity, once again, that's coming from this, it's going to bring a beautiful feel to everyone. So that's great. We'll look out for that then too.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, I am just looking at my notes to make sure that I've hit on everything I wanted to bring up. And I think we have. This has been fun.
Awesome. Yeah. I know.
So
I've been trying. I didn't want to be.
Yeah, make sure everybody that you go to this right here, Katelyn Mabry.
KatelynMabry.com.
Mabry.com, and you can take a look at this incredible book and love every single ounce of it, and read and read and read it. And what's really cool too is I remember the books that were read to me at a young age, and those books stick with me. And so literature, that's the one thing, we didn't quite touch on that I was hoping to bring up, is that reading wasn't always easy for you. And so the fact that you're authoring a book, and I just love all that too.
Trials to triumph, right?
Absolutely. It's just, the story gets further and further. And when you have a passion project like this, it's just really it's gonna do well. I know it's going to.
Thank you.
So thanks so much for being with us. Thank you guys for tuning in to this podcast, and make sure to subscribe and to share this with other people, share it within the ADHD community, outside the ADHD community. All families should know this. We are all going to have exceptional learners in our life, and that's what we are. So thank you so much for tuning in, and have a beautiful day. Oh my goodness, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Katelyn Mabry, for your time, for your vision, and for your ambition to help those in need. We welcome you and celebrate you in our beautiful ADHD community. Guys, her book, once again, is going to be out for sale on January 14th, 2020. It's available right now for pre-order. If you are listening to this after the fact, it's on Amazon. You can also find it at www.katelynmabry.com. And of course, another reminder about our incredible 90-day mental health challenge, $10,000 to the grand prize winner. That is just ridiculous. You do not have to have ADHD to enter. This is to help all of us have a better view on a better you. Guys, please enter, please subscribe. January 14th, 2020 is the last day. If you need more information, you can email me at camden.adhd@gmail.com, or you can find out more information on my webpage, which is located here in YouTube in my bio, or if you're already on it, well, welcome. Keep reading. Another special thank you to Katelyn Mabry for today's podcast, and to my beautiful ADHD community. You can, and you will. Have a good day.